Hello everyone. In this video, I'm going to talk about one of the oldest and most popular Amazon service known as S3. I'm going to start with what S3 is, and then we will look at some of the characteristics of S3. Next, we would be looking at some of the storage classes of S3 and how encryption works with S3. We'll finish off this session by doing a step-by-step walkthrough in AWS portal of everything we discussed. Now, S3 stands for Simple Storage Service, and it is an object-based storage. Cool thing about S3 is it provides you with features like scalability and performance, where you don't need to worry about underlying capacity. And you have virtually unlimited storage at your disposal, but you pay only for what you use. When it comes to security, you do have options to encrypt data at rest or even in transit. And your data is replicated to a minimum of 3 availability zones in a region, providing you with data redundancies. Some of the common use cases include hosting websites. You can even use it for database backups. Since it is an object-based storage, you can even upload things like photos, videos, and documents into it. Now, a document can range from 0 bytes to a maximum of 5 bytes, terabytes. You store these objects in something called S3 buckets, which can be compared to folders in simple terms. So basically, you could have different buckets for different departments or even projects and so on. All AWS accounts shares S3 namespace. So the bucket you create needs to have a globally unique name. You can't just have a name like test bucket, as I'm sure that will be taken by someone else years ago. One idea would be to use timestamp as a suffix in the name to make it globally unique. Now let's have a look at some of the characteristics of S3 storage. S3 has different type of storage classes for different use cases, such as how frequently you need to access stored data and how quickly you want to restore it. We'll discuss more about different storage classes shortly. S3 has a feature called Lifecycle Management, where you can define rules to automatically transition the objects to a cheaper storage or even delete objects after a set period of time. Another characteristic of S3 bucket is versioning, which allows you to retrieve all versions of the object, including the deleted objects as well. Now let's look at the storage classes. The first one is S3 Standard. S3 Standard provides 99.99% of availability and 11 nines of durability to the objects which are stored across multiple availability zones. This is the default storage class, which is suitable for most workloads and supports encryption of data in transit and at rest as well. This storage class provides you with low latency and high throughput performance. S3 storage class can be used to host a static website as well. This is one of the repeated and popular questions you'll see in solution architect and cloud practitioner exams as well. The next one is S3 standard infrequent access, or also called as IA, which is designed for less frequently accessed data with ability of rapid access whenever needed. It offers you the features of S3 standard storage tier. However, you pay a low per GB retrieval charge. It is beneficial to use S3 standard infrequent access for long-term storage and backups. Now, there is another variation of infrequent access called as S3 one zone infrequent access, with the difference being it stores data in one availability zone, unlike other storage classes which store data in a minimum of 3 availability zones. Due to this, it is almost 20% cheaper than S3 standard infrequent access. This is ideal for use cases like secondary copy of on-premise data. You basically use this storage for data which you can afford to lose or easily recreate. Now, you might be in a situation where you don't know your access patterns, or maybe your access pattern keeps on changing. Then you have intelligent tiering to help you in such cases. The intelligent tiering basically monitors access patterns and automatically move objects that have not been accessed to lower cost access tiers. You need to pay a small monthly object monitoring and automation charge to avail this facility. But the benefits you get out of it are way more than what you pay for it. Now let's look at some storage options which are ideal for archiving data. They are optimized for data which is accessed very infrequently. First one being Glacier Instant Retrieval. You use this one to store data that is rarely accessed, maybe once a year, but needs to be accessed instantly. The second one being Glacier Flexible Retrieval. You use this one to store data that does not require immediate access, but needs the flexibility to retrieve large sets of data at no cost. Some of the examples are backup or disaster recovery use cases. Now, retrieval can vary from few minutes to 12 hours. So you use this option only when you can afford to wait before your data becomes available. Now, the last one being Deep Archive, which is the cheapest of all the options. It is designed for particularly those in highly regulated industries, such as financial services, healthcare, and public sectors, which retain data for 7 to 10 years or longer to meet regulatory compliance requirements. Now, retrieval time for this can be up to 48 hours for bulk retrievals. I have mentioned quite a few times that S3 provides encryption in transit and at rest as well. So let's look at the different options available. Now, encryption in transit is provided by the use of SSL or TLS. Whenever you try to access an object in a bucket, then the URL is HTTPS, which signifies that the data in transit is encrypted using a SSL certificate. When it comes to encryption at rest, then it is of two types, server and client side. With server side, you have three types of encryption. The first one being SSE-S3, where the encryption keys are managed by S3 itself, and it uses 256-bit encryption. This is the most common type of encryption used. Now, the second one is SSE-KMS, where the keys are managed by AWS Key Management Service, which is another AWS service which you use here. Now, the third and final being SSE-C, where you as a customer manage your keys on your own. Client-side encryption is basically you encrypt your files before uploading them to S3. Enough of theory. Let's head to AWS portal and see how this all works together. Okay, so I am in AWS portal now. As you can see at the top of the bar, we have an option to go into the S3 workspace. As soon as you are in S3 workspace, you get an option at top to create a bucket. Once you have clicked on create bucket, there are a bunch of options. So the first one is you need to input the name of the bucket. So let's probably give it a name which we can just hope that is not used by someone else. Now you need to there is a note as well. You can see bucket name must be globally unique and must not contain spaces or uppercase letters. So you need to take this into consideration whenever you are choosing a name. And then there is a link to go to see rules for bucket naming. I would highly recommend you look at these rules because I have seen that there are multiple questions in AWS Cloud Practitioner exam at least, which are focused around what is the name that you can use for a bucket. So go through these rules just to make sure if you get any questions, you are prepared for it. Then you need to choose the region where your bucket will be hosted. For, in our case, at the moment, it is chosen as North Virginia by default. I'll keep it North Virginia. Then the optional option is you could choose to copy the settings from an existing bucket. I'm not going to do that at this point because this is the first bucket I'm creating for the demo. Now, the object ownership is basically ACL's disabled, which is the recommended option. So we will just keep it that for now. Uh, then the important setting which you can see here is block public access setting for this bucket, which is checked by default. So this setting basically blocks the public access to your bucket. You will need to manage the authentication and authorization of this bucket separately because the public access is blocked. Then comes the option which we discussed in short some time back, which is bucket versioning. It is disabled by default. So what we'll do is we'll enable this versioning on the bucket. Then you can choose the tags if you want to create any tag. Tags are basically used for cost allocation and those sort of things. So at the moment, I'm not focusing on cost allocation. So I'll just skip this part and directly head to the default encryption. Now, this is where I was talking about the different type of encryptions that are available to you. By default, it chooses the S3 managed keys option where the keys are managed by S3 itself. But if you want to change it, you could use the KMS managed keys as well. Now, as soon as you use the KMS managed key, you get an option to choose from your own keys or enter the AWS KMS key ARN. So any resource that is created in AWS gets its ARN. So you could, if you already have a key created, you could just input the ARN in this section, and it will use that key for doing the encryption. But if you don't have any key, you could click on create a KMS key, and it will take you to the KMS portal and give you option to create keys, which is what is we can see here. I'm not going to create a KMS key at this point, which I'll be doing sometime later when I'm doing a different part in this series, which will be focused around KMS. So for now, we'll just keep it to Amazon S3 managed keys, and we'll just click the bucket key as enabled. Uh, yeah, that's pretty much the properties you get to select when you are creating the bucket. So let's go ahead and create a bucket, and then we'll look at the other properties. It should be quick unless we hit any error. Okay, it's created. Um, so let's go to our bucket. This is the bucket that just got created. And you can just go to the properties to make sure. So this is the ARN that I was talking about. Every resource gets an ARN. Bucket versioning is enabled, and the encryption is set to SSE S3. Uh, so let's try to upload an object to the bucket and see how it looks like. So we'll just click on upload, then you get an option to click on add files. And once you click add file, so I have already downloaded a JPG file that I'm going to use for this demo, which is nothing but a S3 icon. So I just select AWS S3.jpg and upload it. So when you are uploading the object, when you go to properties, you get an option to specify which storage class you are going to upload it to. So as you can see, standard is selected by default. So yeah, anything that gets uploaded is uploaded by default to standard storage tier unless you change the storage tier. Now, why I came to this storage tier page is because it gives you a lot of options to understand how different classes of storage work, and there will be questions around these things in your exam. So if you can see, one question which I have seen in the exam is like, what is the minimum duration that you can store the objects in standard infrequent access? So here you can see, if you are uploading any object to standard infrequent access, you need to store it at least for 30 days. Similarly, when you are storing something in Glacier instant retrieval or Glacier flexible retrieval, you need to store it for 90 days. And when you move to Glacier Deep Archive, you need to store it for at least 180 days. And then if I scroll to the right, it tells you what is the retrieval fees in each storage class, and what is the minimum billable object size that you can upload in different storage classes. So I would highly recommend you to go through this table to understand these things in more detail, to have clarity around these things, because you will get questions around these in your cloud practitioner exam. So since the encryption that we are using is the uh, S3 managed key, so we are just going to leave it as do not specify any encryption key. No tags in this case. We'll just click upload. So it's uploading the image to the bucket. So it has already got uploaded. In the status page, you can see that this is the destination it is showing. So we'll close this and we'll go to the bucket. Let's open the object and see its properties. So you can see the object URL is showing up here. Now the object URL, if you noticed, when I was creating this bucket, I blocked public access. So even if I try to access this object using this URL, I'll get an error message saying access denied. Let's try and do it once. So you can see I'm getting an access denied error message. So what you can do in this case, you can generate a pre-signed URL and share it with your users. If you want to do it this way, what you will do is share a pre-signed URL. It will create a pre-signed URL using your credentials, and then when you share this URL with your users, they'll be able to access the objects. Now, when you are creating this pre-signed URL, you do have option of the time frame when your URL gets expired. You can uh, have whatever you want. So let's say I am let's choose 5 minutes for now and create a pre-signed URL. So it has created a pre-signed URL for me and has already copied to the dashboard as well. So I'll just go into the browser and paste the pre-signed URL, and you can see the image is open here. And now at the top, you can see it has its own dedicated URL, and it is HTTPS, which denotes that the encryption in transit is also in place. Let's now head back to our image. It has its bucket versioning enabled. So what now we'll do is we'll try to, before we try to delete it, let's just look at the management policies first. Okay. So for lifecycle management policies, you go in the management tab, and you, under lifecycle rules, you click create lifecycle rule. Now you need to give the rule name. Basically, let's give it transition to different storage. And then you need to choose a rule scope, whether you apply the rule to few of the objects or you apply the rule to all of the objects in the bucket. So for ease of this demo, I am going to choose apply to all objects in the bucket. And then I just need to acknowledge, because I'm applying a rule globally in to everything in the bucket. So it gives you an option to do an acknowledgement. Now, in the lifecycle rule actions, you have different actions that you can perform as part of lifecycle. You can move the current version of objects between storage classes, or you can move non-current versions. You can even expire current version. That's what I was saying. Then you can permanently delete non-current versions. So for this demo, I'll move current version of object tiers between storage classes. As soon as you choose this option, you in the next screen, you get an option to choose the storage class transition. So for this one, I'm probably going to move it to standard infrequent access, and I need to now specify the time frame when this transition happens. So let's say I put 10, which is 10 days after the object creation, it will move the object to standard IA. Now see, here is the thing that comes into picture. A minimum of 30 days is required before transitioning to standard IEA. So it is automatically telling me that you need to keep it in standard storage class for a minimum of 30 days before you transition it to infrequent access tier. So as soon as I changed the 10 to 30, the warning went away. So, and if you scroll down, you can see that it is showing you in a graphical view as well that day 0, the object gets uploaded, and on day 30, the object moves to standard infrequent access. So let's click on create rule. Yep. So you can see the rule is created, which is named as transition to different storage, and the scope is entire bucket as we chose, and it says transition to standard infrequent access. You can go to the rule and see what is shown in the description as well. So as soon as so this applies to all rules because the scope is entire bucket. So whenever an object that was uploaded to this bucket is 30 days old, it will be moved to standard infrequent access. Now let's look at versioning. So we already have versioning enabled on this bucket, as we have already confirmed that here. So let's try to delete an object now. So to delete an object, you just select the object and hit delete. It will ask you to type delete in the text box, and I click delete subject. So this is now deleted. Um, Now, since we have versioning enabled, so you should still have a version of it that you can restore later on. Um, So in the bucket, nothing is showing up here, right? But now what you need to do is you need to select show versions, and you can see your object is still there. However, its type is delete marker. Now, to make sure that the object is there, you can click on this AWS S3.jpg and it will be downloaded and you can view it as well. Um, Here you can see all the properties of it. The object URL is still there, so everything is there. You can so just to make sure that this is there for your backup. This is how versioning is used to help you in cases where things go wrong. Disaster recovery of your objects. So folks, this is all I wanted to cover in this session. I hope you liked it. If this session has helped you in any way, then hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. I'll see you in the next part of this series. Bye-bye.